Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Retirement Café Podcast, which is brought to you by the Timeline app. The Timeline app is retirement income planning software that helps financial planners like me bring your retirement journey to life and answer your big retirement income questions. Now, at the time of recording this, our following conversation, this is mid-April. We were enjoying wonderful spring weather during the fourth week of lockdown due to the coronavirus pandemic. And it's been the perfect weather for walking, which is what today's guest likes to spend a lot of her time doing. Heather Waring is on a mission to get 1 million women walking. She says that walking makes her soul sing, and she wants to help others experience the positive impact that walking has had upon her life. Here to tell us more is Heather. Good morning.
Good morning, Justin. I'm smiling to myself at that build up. Let's hope I can deliver.
Well, I mean, I suppose, I always find it quite interesting. We were told that we could have an hour's worth of exercise a day. And I was thinking to myself, I'm not actually convinced that most people do take an hour's worth of exercise a day. So anyway, we'll come to that. Tell the listeners who may not know who you are a bit about your story and how you've got to where you've got to.
Okay, well, I'm a coach, mentor, author, speaker, all of that, but I wasn't all of that for a lot of my life. So just going back a little bit, my work life when I was working for somebody else was mostly not for profit, working mainly for small and large charities, more from an education and a health point of view. Two things I've always been really interested in. You can tell from the accent that I'm not from England, but I'm from Northern Ireland, although there is a bit of Scottish in there too, because I studied in Scotland. So that maybe explains to people who are thinking, where on earth is she from? I do get mistaken for being Canadian and American sometimes, and even Australian. So it's always a good start to conversation. But I came to Scotland to go to university and then fast forward into the working world. And then about 2000 decided that I wanted a bit of a change. I'd had my daughter in 97 and really fancied doing a little bit of more home-based work. And coaching was something that I had come across in an article, and it really had kind of resonated with me and the kind of person I am and what I enjoy doing. And I suppose a lot of that was about helping to empower and facilitate other people. So I trained as a coach and did a lot of work initially from a career perspective, helping people not only find new jobs, but learn how to deal with, say, difficult and challenging people in the workplace, look at how to develop themselves in the workplace, and ultimately for many people, look at how they could reinvent themselves after redundancy. And retirement came in there too, because whether we want to be open to it or not, there are many age issues with retirement, and I was finding a lot of women especially were finding it very difficult once they got to their 50s, say, to actually get a job. And that's something that's applicable to men as well. However, after a while, I think I got a little bit, actually probably fed up with helping people do interview questions, prepare for interview, and writing people's CVs. And I had developed a love of walking that had probably gone way back to teenage years and definitely kind of developed further in university years, because being in Scotland, there were lots of lovely places to walk. And I started to think about, how I could combine coaching and walking. And tried this on, and I'm saying tried because the first time I did it, it didn't work. I looked to having 3 strands, one of which was to walk and talk with clients, which was ultimately pretty successful. The second strand was to help people who were doing charity walks get fit to be able to do these walks at a time when a lot of charities really only wanted or we're only really interested in you raising the money. Now, I don't say that in a horrible way, because I can totally understand a lot of these treks, bike rides, runs and things that charities were doing were helping bring new blood into the charities, really, people who wouldn't normally donate to them, younger people, more adventurous people, and really they wanted to raise their donations. So they weren't so worried about whether you got blisters on your trek or not. But I had done a big charity walk along the Great Wall of China, and I knew that the better trained you were, the more you would enjoy the experience. You'd be more likely to repeat it, and you'd also be more likely to share it with other people. So that was strand 2. And strand 3 was to set up walking groups for mums who I would hear at the school gate talk about how the fact they weren't doing exercise, and you alluded to lack of exercise in lots of people's lives earlier, but how they didn't like the gym. They didn't want to go swimming because that meant they had to do the hair and makeup again. They weren't really runners, and they weren't sure what to do. So I did try out these 3 strands, and we had different levels of success, but ultimately around 2006, I decided that this wasn't working the way I wanted it to work. So I kind of went back into the coaching. But clearly the walking love was always there, and the passion was always there. And in 2013, I burnt out. And at the time, it was kind of one of the biggest disasters in life, but actually not long after, I began to see it for the gift it really was. And in my burnout, I used walking as a major part of my recovery, because it led me to so many other wonderful things that come out of walking. And I'm sure we'll touch on that later. And so I took some time off. And in 2015, when I was, I also was diagnosed with adrenal fatigue. It kind of went with the burnout. Right. And when I was told in 2015 that I no longer had adrenal fatigue, I got my daughter to university because I'd been able to be mum a bit more that year by not working. And then I went back to work and started to build a new business all around walking, which is what I'm doing today.
Wow. So the 1 million women walking group, tell me about that. When did that start, and what's your real ambition?
Okay, well, that only started actually in November 2019. Oh. And it's relatively new, and we're coming up for 4,000 women as part of it all over the world, global. It's totally a global group and a global initiative. Brilliant. More about that later. But I was doing some work with a mentor at the time, and she said to me one day, so come on, Heather, tell me, what is your actual mission? What do you want to achieve in the work that you're doing? And I said, well, I suppose when you take it back, I really just want to share with other people, and especially women, the power of walking and what this simple activity that very often we write off can do, and the benefits, the wealth, the ability it has to change your life. And so we kind of drilled down from that to the fact that I wanted to impact the lives of many women through walking, whatever that impact would be to them. Yeah. And then it was how many women? And I just said, well, let's go for 1 million. So it became 1 million women walking. And we set it up on Facebook, initially, just as that's where a lot of my clients at the moment hang out. Yeah. And in the first weekend, we got 500 women on the group.
Great.
So it has absolutely astounded me. And the wonderful thing about it, in our world, we have, I think we were seeing until now, I think things have changed a little with the situation we're in with the coronavirus. But I think up until that point, we were seeing quite a lot of polarization in the world, and therefore a lot of very strong emotions and often a lot of hate. Now, I'm kind of hoping, the optimistic side of me is hoping that we'll come out of this coronavirus situation in a better place. But one of the things I loved about the group was the caring, the sharing, the support, the just the building people up that comes out of that group, and the inspiration and motivation, which everyone comments on regularly. And I'm just very proud of it, and I love being part of it. And the fact I say it in that way because although it's my group, the women have in fact taken an ownership of it themselves, and that is just joyous. So when I'm not there, and I can't be there all the time, and I can't know everybody who's part of it as I did at the very beginning, it's lovely to see them stepping in, answering questions and giving their views that in the past they might have expected me to do all the time. So it's wonderful. Yeah.
Sure. So tell me how it actually works. I mean, everyone's joined a Facebook group about women walking. I mean, when do they go walking? Who goes? Do they go together? Do they walk on their own? What is it? How does it all work?
How does it work? Well, it initially became it was a point of people connecting over a shared love of walking,
right,
and talking about what walking gives to them. Now, this is, although I do a lot of long distance walking, this is not only about long distance walking. So it doesn't matter whether your love of walking stems from the fact that that's what you do once a day when you take your dog out for a walk, across the fields or in the local park or in the streets, depending on where you walk. And it doesn't matter whether it's something you do daily or whether it's something that you do monthly, or whether you only do it with friends, or whether you do it on your own, whatever. It's actually for everything. And what is also lovely is that there are women on that group who are challenged with mobility limitations. So one lady is on kidney dialysis, and she can walk only something like an hour a week. Now, she feels as at home and as much have a right to be on that group as the other women, who many of whom walk even more than I do, So what has developed is a posting of photographs. Now, I never said to anybody, you must post photographs every day, but there are actually women who post photographs every day of their walks. There are women who talk about how walking has affected their mental health. And I think when we think of walking, we often think more of the physical side of it, the activity side of it, the one step in front of another, how many miles can you cover? But for me, and this is borne out by my recovery from adrenal fatigue and burnout, is the mental capacity of walking, what it gives you in freeing up headspace, what it gives you in slowing the pace, in making you more mindful. So there's a lot of, and it gives me a place to also share my expertise and to answer questions, to give people information. And at this time of coronavirus, where there are people who are, and countries, much more limited in the walking that they can do than we are here. And we're very lucky that we can go out at least once a day and walk. Or it's been a lifeline. And there's a lady in India who a couple of weeks ago said, please, ladies, can you continue to share your walks where you're walking? Because it uplifts me, it gets me through my day, it gives me something to look forward to. There's other people in France and Spain who can't walk as far as we're able to, saying it just keeps me looking forward and gives me hope to what I can do once this is over. Now, I never envisaged that that's something that would come out of it when we set this up. And one other thing that's coming out of it is people wanting to find other people near them who they can walk with. Yeah. So some people like to walk on their own. Others, like me, enjoy a mix. And I run walking groups once a month in and around London and the Southeast. So people like to come together and walk. And I think I know there is also a safety issue for women. where they maybe don't feel comfortable walking on their own, they don't feel safe, and they want somebody that they can walk with.
Yeah.
There's also a motivational aspect. It's much easier to talk yourself out of going for a walk than it is if somebody's going to meet up with you and walk. Now, of course, that meeting up with people is severely restricted at the moment. We can't do that at the moment. We can walk with the people we share a house with, family members. So I think it is actually encouraging others to do a little bit more lone walking and perhaps get over that little bit of fear that they did have. And I will try to address that kind of thing. I do some lives in the group. I encourage people to post questions. But the other thing I would say is this group is growing and it's evolving. I'm not sure. I don't know where it's going to go. And actually, that's okay. I'm fine with that. I'm very responsive where possible to what the group ask for, because it is global, because we've got people all over the world. There are people wanting to take, for me to franchise this, for me to license it. So I'm looking at lots of different possibilities. But at the end of the day, it's about getting as many women out walking as possible and seeing the benefits that that brings to their mental and physical health, so they can be better versions of themselves and enjoy life more than they may be doing at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a couple of things that I find very interesting. I chatted a little a few weeks ago to Esther Ranson, who set up Silverline.
Indeed.
And isolation and loneliness, of course, for the retired community, as people get older and children and families move away and are away much more, and maybe that if you were physically fit and played in sports teams, maybe, or I don't know, I play in my local squash club, and I don't know how long I'll do that for, and therefore having access to kind of community groups or walking groups, etc. I can only imagine be hugely beneficial to anyone in the retired community.
Yeah, and interestingly, we had a big debate going on yesterday on the group because someone had posted about a landowner taking an opportunity to have a path closed across his land because of the coronavirus. Now, this clearly brought up lots of strong feelings from people who felt that that was okay to do, and other people who felt that was completely wrong to do. And there's maybe no right and wrong. It depends where you're coming from and how you're looking at this. My concern has always been, if we have to limit walking further, and I do appreciate it's something we might have to do for safety, I'm hoping we don't, is the mental health aspect of a lot of people. And I mean, I have a mum who's now 87, who lives in Northern Ireland. My sister and I both in England, so we're not with her. She's on her own. She's very active. She's very fit. She's very perky. She walks a little on her own, but that's along a road. But she does have a largish, not huge, but largish garden. And I said to her, Mum, at least if you get out and walk around your garden, and at least with us going into spring and summer, the weather is getting better. But I just think that getting out in the air, feeling that kind of expansiveness that one feels when you're in this bigger space is only good for you. And I know myself, even in the middle of winter, just to come out of the back door and be able to hold my head up to the sun and feel that even winter warmth on my skin just makes me feel so much better, And
Yeah.
I did say it makes my soul sing. It definitely does. Walking the I cannot come back from a walk in a bad mood.
No. And the thing is, the thing I've noticed, I do manage to get out most day, and whether it's a walk with the dog or it's a run, possibly the benefit of this kind of social distancing lockdown that we're experiencing at the moment is that you can become much more aware of of nature, I suppose. Even in a suburban area, I live quite close to the beach, but so some of the run is along the beach this morning, and then some of it is through the town. Um, but because it's quiet and because there's very little traffic, you can become much more aware of the sounds around you. And obviously, with the spring birds at the moment, they're very vociferous, aren't they?
They are, and that leads me to something else. Is again, this has come out of the group. A British lady who no longer lives in Britain, who's saying how much she misses the bird song at this time of the year, and if anybody has any recordings. And so we've all started recording bird song and
Brilliant.
putting it up for her, and it is gorgeous. And you are right. I did a little video the other day and posted it saying, is it just me, or are the birds singing more loudly this year? Now, it may be, of course, the absence of other noise masking it, or perhaps they are grateful for the clearer air and they're just singing more loudly. Someone else commented yesterday, is the sky blue, or is it just me? So, coming back to my burnout and my recovery, it was that being more mindful that is one of the big benefits, because we do begin to look around. We begin to take in a lot more of what is present. And that can happen on our local streets as well. Streets we might have, walked down to get to the station every morning for X number of years. You suddenly see something because you're actually engaging with your senses. And you're looking and you're hearing and you're smelling and whatever, So I do think that's a big plus of being out there walking and being at a pace where you can notice things more,
Yeah, I really agree with that. And I think the opportunity to become aware and become curious of your environment much more. I was explaining, we've got Kathy and I have got two children, two girls who are coming up to 11 and 9. And I was in the garden yesterday, and I was looking up to the sky, and I'm an ex-sailor, and I said, "Oh, we've got rain coming." And they look, and they were, there was a couple of wispy clouds in the sky, and there was blue sky, and they were like, "No, we haven't." And I said, "Let's just check the BBC weather app, and if there is some rain forecast for 2 days, for a day's time now, for 2 days before, And again, the ability to just take time when you're outside in nature and just become observant of what are the signs around us that are telling us things, and having the opportunity to do so. And I think walking definitely allows that.
And I wonder, will we hold on to that afterwards? It's hard to know whether we'll just all fall back into our older patterns, or whether some people will really just see this opportunity as a shift. And I live in East London, and although I work from home and I'm on the edge of Epping Forest, which is wonderful, I do, use the tube when life is normal. And I was just thinking the other day, I'm not sure I'm looking forward to going back on the tube again.
No.
So I think it's making a lot of people shift. And, again, when you said in the very early part of this interview about, I don't know if most people do take an hour's exercise. I have noticed many more people out walking, and I think for some, they're interpreting this encouragement to get out and walk as perhaps so you should be getting out and walking or running or cycling or whatever. And perhaps there'll be a whole load of people who'll end up fitter after this than they were before.
Yeah, I do think that it's not that people don't want to be fit, and it's not that people don't want to take exercise. I think it's the modern day pressures is that people are busy, and
Yes.
and sadly the thing that gets struck from your agenda are the things that sadly are the things which are probably serving you best, i.e. your own mental health and your own mental fitness are given way because you go to whoever's shouting the loudest, and whether that's an employer a family member or whatever is going on in your world, is that the last person who gets the oxygen is actually yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why actually so many people burn out, and men burn out as well as women. It's not just women who burn out.
Of course.
I think that is so true. It's another reason, though, why I think that walking is one of those exercises or forms of activity that are sometimes easier to integrate because, at some point, many of us need to walk somewhere, whether it's to a station or to a bus stop or from a car park or, whatever. And if if we can see how we can integrate something like walking easily into our lives, maybe then it does have a chance of remaining or being part of it in a way that, having to go to a swimming pool to go swimming, or even having to get on a bike, although people use bikes, of course, as a method of transport to get to work as well. So I think some forms of exercise are easier to work into your everyday than others. But yeah, I mean, I've been guilty of that, putting exercise aside to do other things that probably don't serve me as well.
Mm. Well, it's been fascinating chatting to you this morning. Before we go, Heather, where can people find out more about your Facebook group and how they can get involved and how they can contact you?
Well, if they're on Facebook and they just put into the search button 1 million women walking, then the group will come up. And if you're not a member already and you're listening and you'd like to become a member, then just ask to join and we'll get you in there. And I'd be delighted to have that. The other place they can find out about me is I currently have a website called Women Walking, Women Talking, where you'll find out about all aspects of what I do, long distance and shorter distance. That actually is going to become, we're working on a updated website at the moment, which will become 1 million women walking too. So that will make it a lot easier. You only have to remember one term then.
Right.
And for anyone interested, if I may, in my story about walking and how it changed my life, I brought out a book at the beginning of this year called How Walking Saved My Life, which talks about my burnout and my adrenal fatigue, the role walking played, and where I see me and walking and other people and walking going in the future. And that's available on Amazon. So that's How Walking Saved My Life by Heather Waring. And there you should get, from all those three things, a good overview of me. And if you want to get in touch, I'd love to hear from you. Doesn't matter how big or how small the ask or the interest is.
Brilliant. Well, it's been absolutely fantastic. I think it's very inspiring, and it's lovely that people maybe have an opportunity to connect and to get into the community of like-minded people and share your passion. So thank you very much for joining me this morning.
Thank you for having me. It's been a delight.
So until next time, this is Justin King helping you feel more informed in your retirement.